Unit 5, Aquatic Ecosystems. Marine ecosystems. This refers to all the saltwater ecosystems on our planet. Oceans cover 3/4 of our Earth's surface and contain main producers of algae and phytoplankton. You'll find more productivity near coastlines of oceans where the water is shallow and warm with lots of sunlight. There are many ocean layers. We use the term benthic to refer to the communities on the bottom of the ocean. The rest of the water column layers are split up into what we call pelagic zones. The littoral zone is our shoreline. This is followed by the epipelagic zone, mesopelagic, and bathypelagic zone. The last two layers of the ocean are the abyssal zone and the hadal zone. Coral reefs. You'll find high biological diversity in coral reefs, as well as high productivity. Coral reefs are actually made of an aggregation of small animals called coral polyps and a photosynthetic algae in a symbiotic relationship together. The limestone calcium skeletons secreted by the coral polyp is what actually builds the reef. Coral reefs are found in shallow, warm water because this area provides the necessary nutrients and sunlight for the algae to live. Coral reefs function to protect a coastline. They also provide a habitat and a complex food web for many marine life. Finally, coral reefs bring in ecotourism, which can boost the economy of an area surrounding a coral reef. Coral reefs are threatened by many things. Mainly they are threatened by overfishing of the animals in the food web of the coral reef. They're also threatened by urban pollution. Finally, global warming affects coral reefs. When water temperatures rise, coral bleaching occurs, which is when corals expel the algae and then they end up dying because they lose their symbiotic relationship. Mangrove forests. Mangrove forests are tall forests in saltwater areas. These occur in calm, shallow tropical coastlines. Mangrove forests provide protection for the coastline as well as a nursery for fish and shrimp to grow. Threats to mangrove forests are urban development and overharvesting of trees for lumber. Estuaries and salt marshes. Estuary is any area where fresh water and salt water mix. A salt marsh is usually an example of an estuary. This is a shallow wetland that is regularly flooded or occasionally flooded with seawater found along shallow coastlines. Estuaries, such as salt marshes, are great areas for spawning and juvenile development of nearly 2/3 of the world's marine fish and shellfish. Rocky shorelines. Rocky shorelines are violent wave-blasted areas, also known as intertidal zones. Rocky shorelines change much with the tide, producing tidal pools. These are depressions that are flooded at high tide but remain with only some water at low tide. Little plant life survives in rocky shorelines due to the constant changing of water, temperature, and salinity levels. But tough animals can survive in this area. Barrier islands. These are low, narrow, sandy islands that form parallel to coastlines. They often protect brackish lagoons, bays, and salt marshes. The main threat to barrier islands is urban development and wind and wave erosion. Freshwater ecosystems. Freshwater ecosystems encompass all the rivers, streams, and lakes that do not contain salt water on our planet. These are centers for biodiversity. They also provide a water source for many people and a habitat for many terrestrial and aquatic animals. Lakes, streams, and rivers. Just as in the ocean, there are distinct water column zones in lakes, streams, and rivers. The top zone near the shoreline is called the littoral zone. The epimelian zone is the surface water in the open water. Thermocline is the temperature boundary. When you go swimming in a lake, you'll usually notice that at a certain depth it gets colder. This is the thermocline. The benthos is the bottom layer of the lake. Lakes, streams, and rivers are often affected by nutrient availability or the excess of nutrients from urban runoff. Also, suspended matter and debris could clog or pollute a lake. Finally, connections to other ecosystems affect lakes, streams, and rivers. Wetlands. Wetlands are shallow ecosystems that are usually land, sometimes saturated or submerged part of the year. Examples of wetlands are swamps, marshes, bogs, and fens. Wetlands function as a habitat. They also retain water from storms to reduce flooding. They filter and purify water from urban and farm runoff before it ends up in larger bodies of water. They also provide a buffer against shore erosion. Wetlands are much like a sponge along our coastline, but many wetlands have been destroyed over time, so they are trying to rebuild them now.